Good morning, everybody, and welcome to 5 Minutes with Shawnee. Here is your host, Mr. Sean Hinton.
Hey Jerry, how are you? It is December the 1st, almost a new year here, a month away. Today's show, I want everyone to do me a favor. Please stop what you're doing right now. Let's take a moment and share this broadcast because today's show is going to be really impactful. This guy's name is Tony Baudet. Suffered a stroke in February of this year and a very successful businessman in the banking world, father, a husband, and he found us through 5 Minutes with Shawnee. He's going to share his story about how his comeback is really revolving about our show. And please, everyone, just take a moment and share this because here he is right now. Here's Tony. Tony, thank you for joining the show and welcome aboard. If you can take us back for a second, tell us about February of this year. What happened to you?
Had a stroke, a stomach stroke. I was at home and didn't even know I was having a stroke till I went in the kitchen and fell down and I couldn't get up.
Wow. Yeah, I hear this a lot. And then you recovered for about a month in the hospital?
Yep, in the hospital for about a little over a month.
And then tell me about how you found us, how you found Jerry and I.
So as I was sitting in the hospital in my room, I would go on the internet looking for stroke forums, and all of a sudden, 5 Minutes with Shawnee just miraculously appeared. And so I decided to watch it, and I'm like, this is a positive impact. It's not about how I'm a victim or why did this happen to me. Your show was really about recovery, and you were talking about, you're going on your 6 year post where, we hear things like, your first 6 months, that's all you're really, really going to regain, and that's about it.
Right.
And then I'm looking at you and seeing other people and hearing stories, and it just really impacted me. So my wife and I, who's my caregiver also, started watching it. But then there were certain things that you would say, like, I can, I shall, I will. I can, I shall, I will. And that I wrote down and I put it in my notebook and I hang it in my office to this day.
Wow.
And
I'm getting emotional here. I'm going to start crying in a second. Well, thank you. I mean, like I said before, Tony, I know you got back to work a few weeks ago and we talked about you getting back, but thank you so much because Jerry and I started this thing in May. We don't know who's watching it. It's starting to grow, but just hearing from you makes the reason why I do this every day or every other day at least. And so I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you.
no,
I
thank
really do mean
you.
that. And I know your son is currently serving our country at the moment, and that's so wonderful. And I have huge respect for the veterans out there, and I've even a lot more respect for your wife, just taking the time to be with you and to be your caregiver and your partner with all this. And that's just amazing. What do you say, what can you tell people out there right now? What kind of advice can you give to somebody who's going through something similar to you?
There's hope. It's really, you have to be strong and you have to know that there's hope. You can, you shall, you will, and you will
Mm.
recover. Because I'm 9 months, just a few weeks ago, and I'm driving and I'm back in my office, and things are still getting better every day. I'm getting better mobility, but it's really about you have to have the attitude and you have to believe you can, you shall, you will.
Wow. Hey, show me your left hand. Wave to everybody. That
Okay?
was that was paralyzed, right?
That was
So
paralyzed.
here it is. Perfect example, people. He's doing it. So if Tony can do it, we all can do it. It's a community. We can build this together. And
And
please,
Sean, let me just ask one other question because I thought it was really cool. Tony was telling us that he and his therapist actually watched the 5 Minutes with Shawnee show together. Can you tell us about that, Tony?
Yeah, it was, they were telling me that I'm really ahead of schedule from what they're seeing, people that have had strokes like mine. And they said, what do you think's doing it? And I said, I can, I shall, I will. And they said, where did you come up with this? And I said, well, I was in the internet and I ran across Sean Anton in your show. And I just really believed I can, I shall, I will. And I'm not going to go back from that. So they said, tell me a little bit more about it. And then for one of my, or actually two of my therapy sessions, we went and looked for 5 Minutes with the Shawnee Show. And it was kind of really impactful because there are other people that the therapists work with. They're saying, you see, you can, you shall, you will, and you just have to believe it. The first time I walked in the hospital, my therapist said, get up and follow me. And I'm like, I can't. And he says, you can, you shall, you will.
wow. Oh,
And it's because of the show. And I got up and walked.
That's so beautiful, buddy. I know that you were reluctant to go back to work a couple of weeks back, and you called me. We had a conversation, and you did it. And it's emotionally charged because we're forced with all these technology, all these medicine, all these doctors say to us, "Hey, whatever you get back in the first 6 months," and you know what that is? That doesn't exist in my world, and you know that. You're 9 months. You're fully back. You're independent. Every stroke is different, but if you can do it, anyone can do it. And just Tony, thank you so much for believing in me and the stroke hacker community here, and you're the prime example of why I do what I do every day. Just thank you so much.
Thank you both. This is really what impacted my recovery and other people in my life that have had similar type issues or medical that, I share this and it impacts them in the same value.
You know what I would love, Tony, on another show is to meet your wife and maybe have her on here and just talk to her about her experience with you because there's so much impact that goes on the caregivers, the loved ones, the families around the people who suffered the stroke.
Yeah, they definitely take the brunt of things sometimes.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Hey, and let me just add here, folks. Sean said it at the top, but when you hear Tony's story today and the reality of how this show impacted his recovery and probably is impacting other people who we haven't heard, that's why it's so important if you share. So after the show is done, just go to the bottom right of your screen and hit that share button and share this with friends because there's a lot to be said here for what this is doing for people, just like what it did for Tony. Very moving. And Tony, we thank you for sharing your story today. And we're kind of running out of time, but thank you very much. And thank you, Sean. Great.
Right.
Well,
Let
thank you.
me end it with one thing. I can, I shall, I will. And again, it's not about why me, it's about what's next. And Tony is the perfect example of what it takes to get through all this. And it does happen. The
It
victory does
does
happen.
happen.
And so thank you, Tony, again for everything. Jerry, are we